Hello and welcome to Columbus Local Podcast. I'm Len D'Amico, and this is episode number 83. 83.
83. The mind boggles.
That, everyone, is the voice of Sam Hooff.
Hello, everybody out there in 83 land.
83 land.
I panicked.
That's all good, man. You know, Sam, I'm going to let you describe your current spot with the Columbus music environment.
Okay, well,
and what you're doing.
I'm the drummer, and my main gig is called the Gypsy Kyngs. I'm having a blast doing that, and we'll be playing at a venue near you sometime soon. And I'm also doing a lot of freelance studio work and a lot of sub gigs here and there, basically where everybody can stand to have me long enough to do a whole gig.
Gotta love it. I gotta love it. And you know, your first instrument, if you will, is drums.
Correct.
So you also, though, are a pretty established musician. You play more than drums. You want to hit us up with your list of toys, Mr. Sam?
Well, I'm only, if I'm known for anything that I shouldn't be embarrassed about, drums are probably what I'm known most for, because that's what I've done out in public and blah blah. I've got, if I have a reputation at all, it's on drums. But I also play keyboards and guitar and bass, and have a blast doing that.
It's amazing to switch from one to the other over time, and always come back to what you're really known for.
Right, drums are the bread and butter for sure.
The bread and butter of drums. But Sam, your involvement with Gypsy Kyngs is pretty recent. How long have you been with Gypsy Kyngs?
I joined them last November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And rolling forward this season, the band sounds just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much. It's an awful lot of fun.
Your right foot precedes you, and
bless you.
And it's known when that band's playing. That band, I don't think has sounded better. Man.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Very much.
Everybody's just spirit is high. And, it's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's big fun. It's big fun, and we're working on new stuff all the time. And
how did Gypsy Kyngs come about for you?
I hadn't really played, I won't say seriously, but I hadn't played frequently, gig-wise, for quite a while. I was taking care of both my parents till they passed from until 2018, and I'd given everything up. I was leaving the house 4 hours a week with your living caregiver. That's all you're doing, which is one of the reasons why I started really playing a lot of guitar.
Right.
Because you don't want to play drums. You could, but boy, that'd be bad juju. So, we got to play something.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, I loved guitar anyway, always have. So anyway, yeah. So it finally got to where I wanted to play more often, because I don't know if losing it is the right word, because I don't know if I ever had it. But whatever I had less of, right? Because I wasn't playing
the mojo
very much. The mojo and just the chops and everything, I was kind of rotting on the vine, and the only remedy for that is to use it, right?
Yep.
So, and I hadn't played in a band in so long. So I mentioned to Keith Pickens, finest rock and roll drummer on earth, with a little TM afterwards.
Woof.
And monster.
Love him.
Monster. The guy's a human weapon.
He says the same about you, by the way.
God love him. He's a charitable fellow. But I had mentioned to Keith that I was thinking about maybe, looking for join another band. And he happened to have heard. He goes, well, I just heard about these guys where the drummer's getting ready to retire, because he's been with them for 12 years. And they're working. And so I thought, why not? So that was Keith. So basically, Keith put us all together. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And have you had a relationship? Because everybody in that band, Gypsy Kyngs, has been around doing music for some time.
Yeah.
Have you crossed paths with anybody in the past?
I hadn't actually. Which once again, being out of the loop, Columbus the scene is kind of a tight circle, and if you're not in it, you miss a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it doesn't take long.
It doesn't take long, and I've never been a bar guy. you know. So much as I'd love to go out and see bands and stuff, it would kind of rub it in my face that I'm not doing that too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, plus I don't drink, which doesn't help at all, you know. But a lot of cough syrup. I'm just kidding. But that's a joke, folks. But or an attempt at one.
You said you were a cheap date, though.
I am a cheap date. And you know, I am easy, and I can take out my teeth. Anyway, so
Joke.
But yeah. So where was I going with this? That's why I didn't know those guys when I was playing. Like one of the steady things, really the only steady thing I'd done for quite a while, was playing at the Port every Wednesday for the open jam with Troy Hickel on bass, who's a monster, Lewis Cass on guitar, another monster, and Jason Feathers on keyboards, who is as fine a drummer as he is a keyboard player, and he's a wicked keyboard player. Guy's got 9 Hammond B3s. It's scary.
Wow.
Yeah. He's.
That's a lot going on.
I am fortunate that I know a lot of guys that I know will never get another one of, and Jason is one of them. But anyway, I would see the Gypsy Kyngs name on the schedule at the Port.
Sure.
Which is how I even heard the name, because that was really the only bar I was going to, you know.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so I wasn't unfamiliar with the name. But as far as the guys, no, I hadn't really come in contact with any of them. The closest was what I mentioned before, where Marty was on that Pettibone album, that, you know, which I subbed. I learned the song subbing for them for one gig out at King of Clubs.
Nice.
But beyond that, yeah, surprisingly, I didn't know any of them. But I was knocked out though. You know, Kent, the bass player, besides being a really good bass player and a great guy, can sing like Graham Nash high.
I know, man.
You know?
I know.
And I was like, whoa. You know, so that was cool. And because really, Phil Dirt and the Dozers spoiled me as far as strong vocals. Playing with those guys, it's like, okay, so this is what it's like.
Right.
And yeah, I want this. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
it's spiritual.
It is. It's spiritual.
At that point.
And people who aren't musicians, just like, for lack of a better term, real people, that's what they respond to, I think, the most on a visceral, because they can relate to it the most. They can't relate to some guy playing, okay, let's say he's playing an F sharp minor now, and then there's a D flat raised now. Well, what the hell? They don't know what that means, nor do they care, nor should they. You know what I mean? But the vocals, though, is the bridge, the link, the communication. You know,
yeah, the connection,
exactly. Yeah. So to see that they had some good vocals going on was a nice plus for me.
So you played with Phil Dirt and the Dozers for? Do you still from time to time?
I do
perform with these guys.
Yeah, they're not really doing much right now. COVID put the hurt on them, but I've done a decent amount of the things that I know of them having done. And man, what a blast! For one thing, it's playing music that I grew up playing, you know, or knowing, I should say, not necessarily playing. So it was like I knew the songs before I even showed up. I mean, they just, no rehearsal, just counted off. I already knew the drum part, right? Because I've heard it my whole life.
Wow.
You know, and to hear that in your face, executed as well as those guys do that stuff. You know, Steve Cabot, the lead singer with a high voice, who can go stratospheric, and he's in his 70s, and he can still call dogs with his voice, man. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
and you have that same depth of music with your current project, right? With Gypsy Kyngs, where the vocals are there, the band's quality, and you're playing some fun gigs. You're having a good
playing
time.
some fun gigs and playing some songs that I didn't have the opportunity ever to play before, and mainly it's all pretty much rock and roll, which is it's one hat you put on, and there's a certain set of physical requirements that go with that, and a certain degree of, I won't say visible conviction, but definitely inner conviction. You know, you gotta mean that stuff for it to.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, and they have the nicest fan base. I was blown away.
Beloved.
Yeah, I mean, people that
environment of appreciation.
Yeah, and
right?
just beautiful people. I'll see the same dozen people on almost every gig. And I mean, sometimes we'll be out in like a Delphi, you know, or all that, and you'll see them, and just wonderful people, you know. And that's I've not experienced that before in a band where, you know, of course they've been around for 12 years, so it makes sense that they'd have that. But yeah, man, just
they've built a quality brand and a quality band.
Yeah, exactly. But to have a fan base like that hey, gives a shit.
And they come out.
And they're just wonderful, wonderful people, man. You know, I'm proud to call them friends now.
That's awesome, man.
You know?
Good for you. That's great to hear.
It's very cool.
And, you know, you're no stranger to the Columbus, Ohio music.
Been at it a minute.
Community. You're definitely a jeweled pillar. Okay? And great company, Sam. I'm intrigued to know how you started music for yourself, you know. And I'm assuming you're from Columbus.
Yep.
So, you know, how old were you and how did this start for you? What's your story?
Well, I was always fascinated by music. I remember when I was 3, maybe 4, I used to have to take naps. Being a fatherless child at that time, I was pawned off on a lot of my mom's sisters whenever she had to work. So she had the one out, they're all on the west side. She had the one who had WMNI on Romulan Stun all day long. All day long. In fact, at that time, that young, I thought, you know, they were in that was a band in that little box. You know what I mean? I thought they were live musicians, you know. But like taking the naps, I remember I would hear, of course, everything was 145 back then on the country station, you know.
Yep.
And I remember hearing all these songs, and there was a similarity in all of them, where at one point it felt like, and I've never really been able to articulate it to my satisfaction, but at one point in the song, it felt like you were home, right? Stasis. And then it felt like maybe you were asking a question or opening a door. And then it would go to this other thing that felt like you were walking through the door or getting your question answered. And after that, you were back home with like, that's the answer. And it was 145.
Yep.
You know? And I remember thinking
that's how you're relating to the music.
That's how it felt to hear those chords.
That's interesting.
And, you know? And like I said, it was decades seemingly almost before I knew what the actual, you know, nuts and bolts of it was. But that's how it felt at the time. Like I said, I remember that being, my mom married my dad when I was 5. So it was before that. It was probably 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, and they also, some of the other sisters, my mom had teenage kids, so they all had records playing. And, you know, Monkeys and, you know, Sonny and Cher and, you know, all the stuff that was, you know.
Oh, yeah, going around.
Hey, Sweet Pea, come on and dance with me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hell yeah.
You know, so obviously you're exposed to that. And the Beatles were on Sullivan a month after I was born. So I was, you know, too busy messing in my diapers for anything to actually register. But they were the replays, however, and also the old Beatles cartoon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. And, man, something about those guys even resonated with just a little, you know, a little curtain climber like me. Magic, man. World-changing, of course, as we all know. And to this day, I still remember being like 4 years old, watching the Beatles, like I think it was on a Sunday morning on Channel 6, and there was a particular sequence in the cartoon where Ringo was swimming in a river and there was an alligator chasing him. And the reason I remembered it was because that was the first time I ever heard All My Lovin', which
blew you away.
Yeah, to this day, it's one of my very favorite songs.
Nice.
You know?
Yep.
And so at one point in '69, it felt like I wanted to start playing. I'd always played records. You know, I had a little room of my own with a record player in it, constantly playing records, constantly. And I remember sitting on Santa's lap at Christmas time right at Eastland Mall
Sure.
And I was 5, right? And this is, yeah, what do you want for Christmas, kid? So I'm thinking, drums. I want drums. Well, this guy must have been a drummer, this Santa guy, because he goes, what kind of drums?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm 5 years old. All I could think of was the heads, right? So all I could answer was, white. And it says, yeah, okay, kid, great. Next. And then I got my first little Ohio art drum kit for Christmas that year.
Were they white?
Well, the tops were white.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But, and of course, there were toys, which have the life of toys. But it was enough to plant the seed, And then a couple of years later, I got a little Japanese piece of junk I didn't have a hi-hat for, let's see, I started playing in 69, right? I didn't have a hi-hat until 79, 10 years. No hi-hat.
The same. You're learning on your own. You're playing
for the
drums.
most part. Yeah. Playing with records. So I had that bass drum, little blue sparkle bass drum, rack drum, snare drum, and a pot lid that was called a cymbal. In fact, I you played them on TV. Played them on schoolies when I was 12 on BNS. Yeah. And so I always wanted to play, and drums were fascinating to me. I remember I used to set that little kid up at 8:00 on Tuesdays in front of the TV so I could play along with the theme of Hawaii 5-0.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
that's a good drum song.
Oh, that's a real good. That's Hal Blaine, boy. Throwing down Hal Blaine. 12 of my favorite drummers from the 60s are Hal Blaine. Yeah.
Every Sunday night.
Yeah. And that was quite a luring experience too. It came in handy later because playing with records, you find out that you lock in with what you're playing along with, right? Then you think, I got this. I don't have to listen to it anymore. Listen to it, and all of a sudden you veered off a zip code away from everything else that's going on, right? So, well, later I did a kind of a MIDI cheeseball duo thing where all this stuff was sequenced, right? We had sample backup vocals and all this stuff. And I was playing an electronic and a hybrid electronic and acoustic kit. We used to play at the Galleria at we called it the Gonorrhea. The Galleria every Fridays, and when you're playing with a sequencer as a drummer, the drummers are used to being the time. Drummers used to being the guy that everybody else listens to if they're listening, if they know what they're doing, to use as a point of reference to where to place their parts, right?
Yep.
Well, you playing with a sequencer, you're not the time anymore.
It's that stuff.
Exactly. And it's merciless. You're either dead in the groove with it or you're sucking. There's no in between, So that's a muscle that you develop and an ear that is so precise and valuable because not only obviously it makes it easier to play with a click, which I love doing, but with that stuff, there wasn't a click per se. It was what I had to do was focus on either the busiest instrument going on or group of instruments if there was nothing that would give me a precise enough reference to be able to know exactly where to place that stuff to make it sit where I needed to. And it teaches you to groove. And that's, without that, chops mean nothing, man. Pocket is the pinnacle, the holy grail.
Yeah. Well, I'm playing bass too.
You get it.
You know when you're in.
Yeah.
And when you're not.
Right. And it's funny because it's I didn't realize till I started playing guitar and bass and keyboards where so much of it's mental. It really is. It's mental. Yeah. Just knowing
where to pluck.
Yeah, I tell you what, the best analogy I can come up with, I used to use this when I teach, is picture a tape measure, okay? Divided into inches, right? And then you got half inch marks, you got quarter inch marks, you got 16th mark, just like a bar of 4/4, right? So if you've got, let's say you're hanging up pictures or something, you got that tape measure extended. Thank you. Okay, and you got to mark exactly where those nails are going to go. Well, are you going to hold that tape measure down here and put the marks like that, or are you just going to put it right up against there and you know,
And hit the tape.
So
right above the tape.
Right. So mentally, that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm like sitting on top of that. What the tape measure is the music going on, or what parts everybody else is playing.
That's cool.
You know,
And performing with sequencers is what did it for you.
That's what did it.
Honed you in.
Yeah, it started playing with records. After a while, you almost get in a little more intuitive. You know, you can almost kind of feel like you're in the car riding with everybody else instead of running next to it. You know what I mean? And that's the only way I can describe it, right? But doing it with a sequencer is definitely, especially all the time, right? It was definitely boot camp. You know?
Yeah, that's an aggressive camp.
Oh yeah,
Mister.
yeah.
You
There's
know,
like I said, there's no middle ground, man.
yeah, 0 to 100 and
Yeah,
in no time.
in no time. Yeah,
That's good advice too for someone to think about. You know, if they're thinking about honing their percussive skills, sequencer
oh yeah. You know,
drills.
I personally think anybody, regardless of instrument, should practice with an external time source, because there's nothing to keep you honest otherwise. And if you're sitting in a room, and honestly, I've seen this, and I don't mean to slag any. There have been many, many times where a guy called himself a lead guitarist, and I already knew what his rhythm was going to sound like, because those guys are used to cramming as many notes, sitting in a room is cramming as many notes into a space of time as possible. So that rhythm playing just goes zoom, because they're just not having to think in terms of. Now there are exceptions. Chatfield, all right. Chatfield, besides being a fabulous lead player, as we all know, is also a ridiculously wonderful rhythm player.
Yeah, he is.
And I told him, I said, man, I don't see too many around. I mean, I saw some in Nashville, but I don't see too many guys play lead that can play rhythm like that, or even get how important it is. I'll never forget what he said. He goes, I'd rather stand back and groove with the band than shake my dick in front of the stage.
Dude, no, he did not say that.
That's what he said. He said it, I didn't.
Oh my god.
But
Yeah, he's a unique
yeah, he is. And,
force.
Yeah, and I love him for that, being able to not only see the importance of playing rhythm, but to be able to do it so beautifully.
Have you jammed with Mark?
Oh, I've played with Mark. Last time I played with Mark would have been. Do you remember a guy named J.D. Blackfoot?
I do.
Okay. I'm on back. You know, yeah, that's a Saba studio. I was like the staff guy there. I was in there all the time doing sessions.
Very cool.
And I played on his one Takala album. And at one point, you know, he was kind of a big deal in St. Louis. And KSHE, the big radio station in St. Louis, was having their 25th birthday party at Riverport Amphitheater out there in St. Louis, which incidentally was a month after there was a riot at a Guns N' Roses gig where they tore that joint apart. There's video of them ripping seats out of the concrete, guys rolling
Guns
Marshall.
N' Roses did this?
Yeah, the audience, because they went off early. Guns N' Roses took off early. Guys rolling Marshall cabinets onto the bus to take them home. There's video of it on YouTube. It's just like insane.
We'll have to check that out.
Oh, it's insane.
Jeez.
In fact, the guy that I talked to that was running the whole thing when I was there was a guy named Sunil, this Indian guy, and they interviewed him, and his eyes were like dinner plates. And it's like, I don't know if I'm going to survive tonight, man.
Wow.
But anyway, JD put this band together because they hired him. It was us, Bachman Turner Overdrive, which most of those guys actually were Guess Who at this point. Peter Frampton, the at that time newly reformed Original Kansas, and Steppenwolf.
And you were in which
I was playing with JD.
Wow. That's a great show.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. That's I gotta kill this because I know exactly what this is.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
No worries, man.
Turn the line down to nothing here.
Sam's phone's barking at him. Here he goes.
Come on. I'm just gonna shut it off.
No worries.
There we go. Sorry about that. Should have done that already.
You're good.
But anyway, yeah, that was a great experience. So anyway, Mark was playing guitar in
JD?
in this band
Oh,
that
really?
he put together. It was Mark, a fella who is my boy's grandfather now, George Mobley, who played with
Oh, I love George.
George. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's my boy's grandpa.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I met him before I met his daughter, And
Wow.
Kay Harris was singing backup, and Tammy, who is now Tammy Walkup, but at that point was Tammy Gambish. They were singing. We called them the Moist Towelettes. They were great singers, man.
I'll bet.
Yeah, that was a blast. So, anyway, that was where I met Mark, and
It was at a one-time gig
it was a one-time gig
in St. Louis.
in St. Louis.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and like the old Polaris Amphitheater was actually deliberately like a third scale version of Riverport. It was huge, huge. All the drum kits were on at once. They just roll one off, roll the next one off, roll the next one off.
Man.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Man, sweet.
It was a blast.
Sweet.
Yep, I just signed with Slingerland Drums too, and they didn't have a drum kit for me yet, but they had these guys in Virginia bring up this one-of-a-kind bird's eye maple set of Slingerlands that was just drop dead gorgeous, man. And when it was over, they'd take them back. I'm like, what do you mean you take them back? Don't take them back. I want them, you know. And say, sorry, man, you know.
No way.
Yeah. That was a fun gig. I get to hang out with Jamie Oldiker, who at that time was playing with Frampton, but he's like the drummer on Clapton's 461 Ocean Boulevard album, and later on he played with the Tractors, and he's just this Tex Val talk just like that there. We hung out in Dress Complex about 25 minutes just talking about playing drums and fishing, you know. And he's
Killer drummer.
oh
though.
my God, man, amazing player.
Yeah.
Amazing. In fact, I don't know if this is true or not, but when that,
So let's talk about it.
well, yeah, but
This is something you heard.
right, in case this is true, when that Slingerland kit,
But you heard it.
but I heard it when that Slingerland kit was delivered. You know, we were the first band on, so we were sound checking, and you know, you just want to just dig in,
Set it up.
yeah, and just
Hold it together.
and just wail on it the best you can, just to see what you're going to get out of it, right? So after the gig, I was talking to Jamie Oldiker, and he supposedly Frampton. Well, for one thing, Jamie says, he goes, "You son of a bitch."
Oh, because he sees your kid.
He goes, and now Peter says I got to play a damn drum solo, and we got to start with it.
Really?
Yeah, it's in the very first song.
No way.
Yeah. So I guess
Did you let him play your
I guess
kid?
it is true. Oh, no, he didn't need it, man. He had this stunning set of Sunburst Yamahas. He's a Yamaha endorser, so he had to play those anyway. But
Okay.
now that kit was a toy compared to what he had up there.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool.
It was really cool. Steppenwolf had no bass player. It was a computer.
No way.
Yeah, it was a computer.
What year was that? Do you remember? Like
90 or 91, something like
so
that.
that was maybe 11 years in for you playing, right?
Oh, longer than that.
When did you start?
1969.
You started playing in '69.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start playing in like with other people in your first band kind
Oh,
of thing?
well, my first gig was I was 14 or 15, excuse me, which would have been what, 64, 74 is 10, something like 78, 79 at the Reynoldsburg roller rink.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
The roller rink.
The roller
in
rink.
Reynoldsburg.
And what I thought was
That's
cool.
your first gig.
Yeah, and what I thought was cool about it was because I heard Bob Seger used to play there all the time back before.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I play place Bob Seger played there. You know?
Big time, baby.
Big time. Hey, man, I've arrived, you know. But, yeah. And then
When was your first big band?
big
How'd you
band.
get into it? You know, so you were you playing covers?
Oh, yeah.
Initially, then 1980-ish.
Yeah, that's honestly, man, I've probably 80% of what, for lack of a better term, you would call a career has been playing covers. You know, I'm just another working drummer in town. You know what I mean? For the most part, just doing what all these other guys are doing. You know, because that's where the work was. You know, it's not like Cincinnati or Cleveland where if you're playing covers, you don't work. You know what I mean? In Columbus, it's the other way around. If you're not playing covers, if you won't work.
Yep.
You know. So, you know, and there's other places. Yeah, they don't. If you're a cover band, you're like bottom tier. You know, they want original stuff, seemingly for the most part over there.
Right.
But yeah, the vast majority of what I've done has been playing covers, and I love it. You know, Because for one thing, it's a chance to put on a whole bunch, even within like a rock and roll. Let's say you're in a rock and roll cover band. Okay, there's still all these different. If you want to really sound authentic, you really learn how to get into how these other guys play. Because let's say you got to put on a Bottom hat, and then you got to turn around and put on a Kenny Aronoff hat. Then you got to turn around and put on a Charlie Watts hat, right? Vastly different, you know? And so you really get an understanding of what's going on with each of those,
right?
Which really comes in handy in the studio, because then a client can tell you, well, I want blah, blah, blah.
Oh, you can relate to that.
I can give you that. I know what that is.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
Which saves a lot of time.
It served you well.
I've had good luck with it, I think. I've never had anybody complain, at least, you know, to my face. Who knows what they're saying when I go on?
No one's complaining.
Oh, God, that idiot, Jesus.
Nobody's complaining, dude.
I hope not.
No way.
I hope not.
So, you know, cover bands in the 80s, Columbus had a big brewing scene.
Oh, yeah.
At that time,
oh,
even,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And, when'd you meet John Schwab, for example?
John?
You know, so I know you have some history there.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mobley grew up with him, for one thing. Those guys go back to like third grade. I met John. How did I meet John? At one point, he was putting together a band. One McGuffey Lane just put together a band, John Schwab band, and he hired me on drums. Hadn't hired a bass player yet. Well, like I was telling you about when I was in Conspiracy, playing with Mike Smith, who was dating Molly Pocken. Right. And we had this kind of jam thing, and Molly just, you know, gave my chin rug burn. Right.
I know.
Yeah.
She's so incredible.
She was put on earth to do that, man. You know, we'll not get another Molly Pocken. And so John asked me, well, who would you want on bass? And I told him, man, listen, I've just played with this girl. You're not going to believe it. He's, a girl? Trust me. You know, and now, look.
I know.
Yeah.
There it is. It's a long-term relationship there with music. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly how I did meet John, because I didn't know George yet. He must have just called me. Yeah.
About a music?
About playing
his music?
Yeah.
You guys got together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that it never occurred to me. How did I meet? Because I've known him for so long, you know.
So with John, then you started this initial project. Did you carry forward into McGuffey Lane? Had it been thought through at that point, or just was just playing together in the early 80s?
We were playing together. It was initially it was myself and John and Molly and Mike Nugent.
Okay.
Who's, I mean, come on, Mike Nugent. The guy, he should be embarrassed at how good he is. You know, and one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
That's cool.
And he's just a ridiculously amazing player. And we did that for a long time. And then
where were you guys playing?
Desert Rose, Max and Irma's.
Sweet.
Yeah. Where else? My God, it's been so long. I'm sure there were others. Oh, Bourbon Street. You know, out there on the east side.
Yep.
And I'm sure plenty of other places. Another place called, I think, Mingles on Norton Road out on the out west. Those are the ones that come to mind anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you progress then? McGuffey Lane did eventually come to fruition. Did you actually played in McGuffey Lane?
I did play in McGuffey Lane. Well, I had...
But there was a little bit of a break.
Yeah,
right?
There was a time period in between.
From the time you just, encountered Molly and John.
Oh, yeah, there was a period of quite a few years, actually.
Before you actually, participated in McGuffey Lane itself.
Right. I had actually started playing in the Schwab band again. Mm-hmm. Because McGuffey Lane was only doing, like, odd spot gigs here and there. Your corporate event or, bigger things.
Yeah.
And so... at that point, it was just started playing in McGuffey Lane too, The first gig I did with them, I had joined 3 days before, and we had one rehearsal, and the gig was in front of 15,000 people at this big thing at Delaware State Park with Tanya Tucker and this kind of thing. And that was a blast.
Oh, for sure.
That was a
Yeah.
blast. And
A whole weekend gig.
yeah,
Every night that weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big crowds because
big
everyone's
crowds
digging it.
Yeah, it was, and it looks like it was one night. It was, but man, it was crazy. You know, it's like I hadn't done that before. You know, where one rehearsal. Unfortunately, I already knew most of the stuff. You know, because like I told him I got the album when I was 14 for Christmas.
For sure.
Yeah, and yeah, that was big fun. Big fun.
When you engaged with McGuffey Lane, were you involved in some other efforts that leveraged your mad skills on the
Mad skills. Well, let's see. I mean, I've always been doing something.
Yeah.
You know. So I imagine I was in one or two cover bands. Like I said, that was so long ago. I mean, that was
Yeah.
in the mid '90s,
Yeah.
close to late '90s, where it all kind of runs together. Well, I was playing with Mobley in that band he had called Tracker,
Okay.
and God, I can't remember what else I was doing.
we can catch George out there sometimes. Like, boom, you just see this announcement George is going to play
Yeah.
somewhere. And I try to hit those.
You should have him on here.
I would love to have George on here.
I mean, because he's been doing it since the '60s, man.
I know, man, and he's such a pillar.
He is. He is.
He's a great guitar player.
Yeah, he's a wonderful player.
Great musician.
Yeah, yeah. And,
A lot of respect for him.
Yeah, love the guy to death, man. We are absolute. Even though I'm not married to his daughter anymore, we're still like brothers.
Oh, wow.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, the boys love him. My sons love him.
That's good. As they should.
As they should. Absolutely.
That's mad respect.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, when I first met him, he was just this great, big, boisterous Lil Abner type guy, and I wondered if he was going to throw me through a window or something, you know. Because he was a goon too, you know. I mean, he had this mischievous thing, like he always had this vibe, like he was up to something, you know.
I think he still might have that vibe.
He
a little
kind of
tiny
does.
bit,
He does.
especially with a Les Paul in his hands.
Yeah, the fact that he can hold up a Les Paul Custom from the early '70s, which has its own gravitational pull,
And play it all night.
and play it all night, is a testament just to the physical strength
Make it cry.
of that guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's a horse.
Yeah,
Guy's just a horse.
He's a force.
Yeah, yeah.
No doubt about it. No, I will work to ask George to do it. I would definitely will.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So McGuffey Lane, though, so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that how long were you in the McGuffey Lane band? I mean, that's a pretty famous Columbus-based.
Couple of years. I'm on the Call Me Lucky album, and I'm on the Columbus Clippers commercial that we did. I don't know if TVM still used it. They used it for about 20 years. Come see the Clippers, blap boop, blap boop, boom boom. That's me doing
That's you.
That's me blap boop blapping, and that was what at that point was the current iteration of McGuffey Lane, and we recorded that in the studio and all that.
Nice.
And but I'd always been doing some other things too, because you know McGuffey Lane didn't work all the time, you know, because you know John's always had so much solo stuff,
Right.
which is his bread and butter. Which, I mean, don't blame it, man. Money makes doing it. I mean,
He's still doing it.
yes, he's still doing it, and he's really good at it too. So I mean, it makes sense that he would be. So that freed us up to do a bunch of other things, and so, you know, I work in various day jobs along with that. You know, married with kids, blah blah
Sure.
blah blah blah.
Sure thing.
So yeah. So, God, that's so long ago. My
A lot of recording.
lot of recording.
Where'd you go from McGuffey Lane?
Where did I go from McGuffey Lane? Don't tell me. Where did I go from McGuffey Lane? I think I was just playing in a bunch of, you know, that thing kind of like Marlino does, where you just you're playing a lot of bands just to keep the squares filled up on the calendar.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in my case, they were, you know, no disrespect to anybody, but they were all kind of nondescript, and that I was doing the same thing in all of them. So there were probably close to maybe 12 during that time period that lasted various times, you know, lengths. Along with recording, you know, I'd record out at John's, I'd record out at Dan Green and Amerisound gave me a lot of work back then. Sasapa was gone by then. Where else was I recording at? Where else was there? Music Hall. Those are
What a great experience, Sam. Really, I mean, that's a lot of schooling and experience.
yeah, it's valuable.
Exposure, all kinds of different people and influences, you know?
You know, I guess really, you know, the drums are in the back. So,
But you're driving the bus, man.
yeah, but the people don't really notice you, which I liked because, you know, I get like, I'm a little nervous. I can play in front of 30,000 people. No problem. Here, I'm just like a little, so I like being not noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so solos, I get self-conscious, right? I don't get as self-conscious singing as I used to, like singing lead. I'm not sure why, but maybe it's just because you get used to doing it. I don't know, but
You're getting comfortable.
yeah, maybe. Or it's just like, I think what it gets down to is like, well, here I am. I can't like back off of it, so I might as well just try and do the best I can because like it ain't like I can say I stop now.
Yeah.
You know, stop the song. Okay, here goes.
We're going home.
All right,
you
I'm
know?
going home. So just focus on what you're trying to do. You know, so it's not quite as self-conscious, but there's still a little bit of that. Still a little bit of that here and there.
Do you feel like you're still tapped into the web of the musical vibe that's happening around you? In other words, you know, you talked about earlier when you'd listen to a song,
Yeah.
you know, country, you felt this pattern of I'm home, I'm look for the question, I got the answer kind of thing.
Then I'm back home. Yeah.
Not to that degree, but you feel like you're tapped into to a deeper presence of music.
I would say, I don't know if I mean, that's an awfully
It's
eloquent way to put it. But I know that because of what I've been exposed to musically, and I don't mean drum wise, I mean like partially drum wise, but mostly harmonically. Harmonically listening to, you know, because I've done jazz gigs, for example. You know, quickly, my big thing in high school is I wanted to be a studio musician. That was all my heroes were studio guys, right? Well, you had to be able to walk into, you didn't know what you were going to play that day. You had to be able to walk in and sound like you'd been playing that style your whole life, right? So I had to get experience playing all this stuff, right? I did drum and bugle corps, doing jazz groups. I was in the Columbus Youth Symphony. You know, I wanted to know how to do all of it, you know.
right.
And so as a result, you get exposed to a lot of different kinds of composition, you know, and you learn what kind of harmonic depth, at least or how it feels to hear it, is out there to be experienced, which you wouldn't know about if you only listen to, say, metal or you only listen to country.
What is it that a person could listen to understand what you're talking about in regard to harmonics?
Well, I'm going to guess different things resonate to different people. You know, I don't think there's like a universal, you know what I mean? Like even say She's Leaving Home off of Sgt. Pepper, for example, is something that would move a lot of people.
Yeah.
For myself personally, I experienced it the most listening to Todd Rundgren. As I was mentioned, Rundgren and Utopia were the soundtrack of 10 or 12 years of my life. That was all I cared to listen to for the most part. Steely Dan was another one.
Right on.
It had what Zappa would call statistical density, meaning there was a lot more going on harmonically, which would heighten the experience of hearing.
Which is why Steely Dan is so embraced
exactly.
by so many. You feel everything happening.
Right. And I put Rundgren on a par with them. Not in the same way, but to the same depth. You know,
of the harmonics.
Of the harmonics, yeah.
And the dynamics.
And yeah, because for example, they both kind of have their trademark chords. Steely Dan is more closer to like standard jazz voicings, the extensions and things like that. Rundgren, by accident, came upon his own style because he's purely self-taught, and you could tell it was just from like basically physical moves. Well, if I'm here with my left hand and I do this with my right, and then I go here with my right, but not move the left hand, well, that sounds good. And it turns out that it's just not something that you hear anybody else using, which used to make me nuts because when I was in like high school,
the drummer comes out.
Oh man, no,
that's not right.
That ain't right. But the other thing that made me crazy was like in high school after I got my theory and harmony training, right? I could hear, okay, that's a third. Okay, that's a sharp 9. I could hear a chord and I could tell what every voicing was. With Rundgren, I could, except for there was always one. There was always one. It's like I couldn't figure out what the hell that is. And I mean, I would listen hard. My ears, for lack of a better term, would squint really hard.
So your body would physically squelch.
Yeah. I mean,
something happening.
like there's something going on in these chords that I can hear it, but I can't tell what it is. You know what I mean? And it just bugged me, partially because my ego was bruised because I was a 16-year-old egotistical punk before I became just old and stupid. And so it took me forever. And man, once I figured it out, it was like, I'm an idiot. I'm a total idiot because I knew exactly this. When he started doing this, it wasn't because, now if I do this, it'll sound right. Nope. He totally stumbled on it. And it was just a single little move. And you started to hear it in everything that he did. To the point to where, like, I was Craig Phillips. I don't know if you know Craig Phillips now. Real good friend of mine, world-class luthier, world-class guitarist. Man, this guy.
Real quick.
Yeah.
He fixed my Les Paul neck. It was the last guitar he repaired before he closed his shop on High Street.
Is that right? So
and I have that claim of fame. I actually have his
I'll
signature
be
on every
doggone.
seat in that guitar case.
He and I talk literally every day.
He was awesome.
He and I talk literally every day. The last time I was at his place, he'd worked on one of my Strats. And so I check it out, and I play. And the first thing, I mean, this guy's went to college playing jazz. He just goes, "You and your Todd chords." Yeah.
So you started doing it on your guitar?
Yeah. So
were you able to hear it? Were you still squelching it, even though you were doing it?
No, because I figured. See, a lot of that stuff where he had those kind of harmonic things, his statistical density, he had written on piano. And obviously, the notes are just lined up. It's not like a guitar where you got the jump of a fourth or whatever, from string to string.
Yeah.
So once you know what it is on a piano, on a keyboard, you just translate it over on guitar. And which I love.
Right.
Because it makes you approach it almost like some of my stuff. I realized I was kind of approaching it like a keyboard. Because, for example, if you're in C and you play a D minor seventh, right, with the D at the bottom, well, an R&B thing would be to keep the chord going, but the bass goes to the 5. So it'd still be a D minor 7th, but instead of a D, the bass is playing the G, which makes the whole thing a G 11th. And it's just this gorgeous, or a
sonic.
Right.
Dynamic.
It's just this beautiful, real sensitive turnaround instead of just hitting a freaking G major, like a Nashville thing. It's like, here's the 5,
Chew on that.
Exactly. Here's 5. Now shut up. But no, they give you this.
We did it.
Exactly. But you'd get this.
But you have a sonic.
Yeah, you get
feeling.
this beautiful turnaround. And there's that character. Like, it's a lot of ballads have it. Todd, a lot of his rock and roll stuff have it. I can't hardly keep from using it. That's my problem. But anyway, on guitar you can do the same thing. Play a D minor 7th, just the old cowboy D minor 7th, right? But then take your ring finger, put it on the 3rd fret on the low E where you got your G, and there's your turnaround. Same way a keyboard would do it, where the right hand's playing that, and then the bass comes down to the other note. And that stuff just fascinates me to death.
Obviously.
To death, more than drums ever could.
That's kind of a cool explanation, though.
I love it, man. It's that will drive me till I'm dead, learning it and indulging in it.
Nice.
How
much are you writing now, Sam?
I'm not writing as much right now as I used to, as I have been, just because I don't have as much time. I also haven't had the room to work there, really, because the one room where all my gear is, at one point I got a staffy pit and had to keep the crate in there because he would have eaten my house. So that was where my work room was. But although now that's all gone now, so I can get back. I've got access to all my recording gear because I have all my amps. My 16 amps in road cases and a lot of my guitars and all that stuff are all in that. My keyboard rig are all in that same little room. But as far as the writing goes, I still have stuff in my head all the time. I've done it enough now to where I can remember it, or at least write it out. But there's still that stuff. Like, man, if you ever have a song come up in your sleep that you don't recognize, figure out how to record it, because number one, the subconscious doesn't make mistakes. Number two, it will go away.
Yeah, that happens, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I've lost some of what I would have loved to have been able
Rhythmatic
to record.
stuff in your
just
head. You
chord
just-
progressions,
ooh.
melodic things, all kinds of stuff,
Inspiration.
Inspiration, yeah. And like I said, it just goes away,
Yeah, no, I think everybody experiences some of that if you're into music.
Right, right.
To the degree that you are, it's almost a tragic thought to think that something slipped out into the ether.
Well, there's some things, to use Rundgren as an example, his biggest song he ever had, besides Hello, It's Me, which was the first song he ever wrote, by the way, was Bang the Drum All Day, right? He said it came to him in a dream. He dreamt it, and it's just like, okay, that's not exactly the genius that he's known for.
Right.
But nevertheless, okay. And now look, it's paid off his house.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Exactly.
That one.
Exactly. So he understood, God, I'd love to know what escaped him in his sleep that he didn't chronicle. I bet some of that stuff was just majestic,
Now now you're going to make me want to listen to Rundgren all night. I will too.
I can give you a playlist, buddy. I can give you a playlist.
Dude, I would appreciate that. Because the dynamic conversation has me sensitized now to listen for it
Yeah,
a little more intently.
It'd be an honor.
Thank you.
I got to actually, I've met him a couple of times remember Vets Memorial?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw my first concert at Vets.
Okay. Well,
Late 70s.
at one point, the Tubes and were doing their last album, which Todd had produced. Utopia had also done they didn't know at the time was their last album. So they went on the road together. Utopia was opening for the Tubes. And they were staying at it was called the Picket at the time, but guest quarters, I guess it was called after that. Well, I worked in the pit at Vets, so I knew where the stage door was. And you go in through the front, you're not getting to the auditorium before the doors open. So I was driving past there about 3 p.m, and walking down the street is like half of the Tubes. And
you just recognized their their gate probably.
Oh, I knew who they were.
Cats are cool.
Yeah, I love that album, man. So,
yeah.
So there was that entrance to the front of Vets, that big, grandiose, right? Well, there was some kind of quilting convention or something going on, and I'm thinking they're heading into that door. They're not going to be. So I zip into the parking lot and run around, and it's like, you are not going to be able to get into the gig from here. And I'm like, how do you get in this effing place?
Right.
I'll take you to the stage door. So we're walking around at the side of the building, and I start talking drums with Prairie Prince, who's always been one of my favorite rock and roll drummers. That guy, because he can play funk along.
That's so
rock.
cool. You got to meet him and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to him this way.
Well, then he starts talking about, I just got this new snare drum from this new company that made toy drums and marching drums for the Civil War. And he says, company called Noble and Cooley, which I'd never heard of before at that time. And he goes, yeah, come on, I'll show you. So I'm like, no way. So I'm at Vets for the Utopia and Tube sound check. And this was back when Willie Wilcox still had his motorcycle kit, which I don't know if you've ever seen, but he had this kit called a Trapparatus, which was electronic pads all built onto a motorcycle frame. It was disease. If you ever get to see any pictures, it's insane. And it burned up in a warehouse fire in Detroit, not even a year after I saw those guys. But so they're doing their sound check, and I'm off to the side of the stage, staying out of the way, and Todd's guitar tech is right there. And Todd had these two for the Raw tour. Once again, if you're not into Todd, you may not know what any of this means, but the Raw tour was the first big Utopia tour. And he had Todd had this guy, John Valeno, making these solid aluminum guitars. If you ever see the cover of All American Boy by Rick Derringer, he's got that chrome looking.
Sure.
Valeno had made that. So it's the same, but these are shaped like Ankh crosses. They weighed 43 pounds apiece. So I'm like, oh my God, those are the Raw guitars. And so he hands me one of them.
No way.
Yeah. So I'm blown away, right? And then he goes, the tech, what a cool guy. He goes, now this only comes out for sound check. And he opens the case up, and it was the SG that Clapton used in Cream.
Oh, dude.
The psychedelic SG.
Are you kidding me?
Swear to God.
How does that show up there?
Well, it belonged to Todd.
Oh.
Todd had bought it for $500 from Jackie Lomax. And so I'm just, it was almost like a thing, You remember that Pulp Fiction when Travolta opens up that one suitcase and there's that glow coming out? That's how that was. Like, oh my God! So he hands it to me. I ain't touching that. He goes, just don't drop it. You know,
Man.
And so, here, take this back. But yeah. So and I got to talk to Todd a bit about all that stuff later.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow. Oh, dude, that is so cool.
Yeah. I was a happy guy. Needless
And
to
that
say,
was just happenstance.
just
moment.
happenstance. Just happenstance.
Assisting the band to the stage door.
To the stage door. Yeah. Yeah.
That's sweet.
There were a couple other instances like that. The one that stands out for me the most is I worked at the Ohio Center for 3 years, and I worked in the auditorium, and Iron Maiden was coming through. Well, at that time, I used to collect these drums that Slingerland made in the 40s called Radio Kings. And they were marvelous, marvelous drums. Ironically, I had to quit playing them when I got the endorsement because they were saying, well, we don't make stuff like that anymore. You can't play it anymore. Anyway, but the snare drums were the holy grails, right? So I was talking to Nico's tech, the Nico McBrain, who was this great big rugby playing guy whose name was Steve Gadd.
No way.
Steve Gadd. And it spelled the same and everything. They called him Gadsy. And he was just this gruff guy. And I was just joking. I was hey, I don't see any Radio Kings up there. He goes, and what's a Radio King then? And I said, oh, well, they were designed by Gene Krupa. He goes, Krupa? I shall have one of them. And I had a house full of them at the time. And my girlfriend was the head usher. So I called her to go to my house and grab this one and this one. And Nico winds up buying them. But in the meantime, before this, Iron Maiden's backline crew was actually a band in the 70s called Charlie. They had a couple albums out on I think, Pi or one of the English labels. So they're sound checking. They do their sound check. You know, of course, there's 17,000 seat empty with the PA cranked. So it's majestic, of course. Right?
Yes.
And Nico was a Sonar guy. He was a Sonar endorser, and he had one of everything Sonar made up there and one of everything Pasty made up there, you know. And so I get done talking to, you know, Gad and I are talking. He goes, you want to take a look at the kit? So I go up. It's like, wow. Of course, my hands are in my back pockets because I heard him saying, anybody turns any of these bloody symbols, I'm tearing your bloody head off.
Right.
Anyway, so he goes, have a seat. He lifts up the gong. Have a seat. Reaches into this road case. It's almost as big as a coffin. He opens it up, and it's just all these individual pairs of Foot C drumsticks from Foot's Drum Shop in London. Must have been probably 100 dozen of them. And he goes, have a go. I'm like, no way. He goes, have a go.
Have a go.
And the PA was still up.
All right.
And yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
You got at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was the first
That's
set of
beautiful.
That was the first set of Sonars I'd ever played.
Yeah, and you were hooked from that day
I was
forward.
years later I became an endorser. I was an endorser for 15 years. I've got 8 sets of Sonars.
Beautiful.
And it was just like incredible. And he says, just don't tell Nico. I said, well, I'll tell him, you know. But
That's a sweet story, dude.
man, you know how hopefully everybody has little quiet moments of triumph in their lives where they think, yeah, okay. I had one because of that, because later, Gadsy, after Nico buys the snare drums, he pulls me over, he goes, I got to tell you, he goes, Nico leaned over to me and said, Gadsy, you've been practicing? I'm like, no way, man, no way, oh my God, no way.
Yes.
So that's, if I ever get Alzheimer's, I hope I never forget that.
You'll never forget that, dude.
No, I can't,
That's
man.
awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
No, it's cool.
It is off. I gotta say,
that's a moment.
I gotta say that still brings me quite a bit of happiness when I think about it.
This look on your face tells the tale. That's a big smile.
That's very cool, man. It was very cool. I saw a lot of crazy stuff working there. I got to talk a lot of the drummers that came through.
Sure.
I also sold a snare drum to the drummer of the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
How'd that happen?
Well, now he knew what Radio Kings were. Frank Christina was the guy with them because, Texas guy, right?
Yep.
And he was from New Jersey, Like John Leslie, the porn actor, those guys were in a band together, right? He says his real name is Joe Nermo. Anyway, so hey Joe over there. So he's up there standing, it kind of catches his eye, and he had a beautiful set of sonars, ironically, at the same time. And I said, "What? No Radio Kings?" And he goes, "You got Radio Kings?" I said, "I got a ton of Radio Kings." And he jumps down and about throws me on a road case, goes, "Let's talk."
Wow.
Yeah. So there again, called my girlfriend, head usher, go to my house, go get the Black Diamond Pearl, and she brings it. Well, the dressing room for the warm-up act is the ladies' room that's on that end of the hall that they close off.
Which venue is this?
Ohio Center.
Oh, yeah.
So like if you're looking at the stage, because of the trade shows, they've got them all over the place, right? But they fence off, like if you're looking at the stage, right where the stage stops on both sides, it's fenced off all the way to the wall from there. So the headliners, or the warm-ups dressing room, is that big, long ladies' room. So it's nothing but stalls. Got to be 30, 40 of them. And the acoustics in a room like that. So he grabs his stand off the stage and puts this Radio King on there, and we're open that big open area where they do all their makeup and everything. He goes, slap, pow, very back stall. We hear this scream like somebody's getting killed.
What is that?
He comes, and I hope I can say this, but the guy goes, "I'm shitting." Comes out fixing his pants. It was Jimmy Vaughn.
No.
He going, "Did somebody just shoot a gun in here?"
Dude.
He goes, "Nah, I'm just checking out this snare drum." He goes, "It sounds like he just shot somebody, man."
Oh my God. Yeah, the yammer. So that's how you met Mr. Vaughn.
That's how I met Jimmy Vaughn.
With his pants down.
With his pants down, yeah, kind of giving
ringing his ears.
That's right, helping him out with any irregularity he may have been experiencing at the time inadvertently.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Yeah, so Ohio Center allowed you to stay close and have these encounters.
Yeah, the job that I had was actually around that area.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There was some stuff that I can't.
You can't talk about.
I can't talk about.
It's just too dangerous.
Well, yeah.
I get it. Don't do that to yourself.
Oh, that's all right.
But I'm also curious. How many tours have you been on? You've toured with bands.
Mm-hmm.
You've toured with. Obviously, you toured with McGuffey Lane.
Well, McGuffey Lane never toured.
I didn't realize that.
Well, not when I was with them.
Okay.
Early on, they did. They toured with the Judds and the Allman Brothers. And
okay. Your years were some recording, and then
that was before my time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, McGuffey Lane wasn't a touring act anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have toured.
I have toured.
Who were you touring with?
Well, in the States, it was always just with these road cover bands.
Yep.
I did one called Ferrari for off and on forever. And there were a few more that were like that, just not the Holiday Inn circuit, but almost, like down in...
Was it national?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were out there.
Yeah, like down south, there was a chain of places called the Brass A that were pretty nice places. And we used to play those. In fact, I met James Kodak, who, God rest his soul, he's gone now, playing he was playing in a cover band too, down the street, before he was in Kingdom Come and the Scorpions and all that. He was just a guy around Kentucky. And for example, so the guys past would always cross. I also toured Europe with American Dog, subbing for Keith Pickens.
Subbing for Keith.
Subbing for Keith, yeah. And
how'd you meet Keith?
I met Keith when I was working at the Percussion Center. I was the repair tech at the Percussion Center in the late 80s. And Keith would come in.
You stayed in touch.
Stayed in touch. And Keith is one of those guys where if he's interested in something, I dare you to stop him from learning every single thing about it.
That's so cool about him.
Yeah, and I've always said he's one of those
deep.
guys that skipped school the day they taught the word can't.
Right.
You know what I mean? We will not get, I feel very safe saying, we will not get another Keith Pickens.
He's so cool, dude. He's so cool.
And my God, what a drummer.
Yes.
My goodness. I can't tell you how much, I love the guy, but his playing, separate from that, I just loved it, man. It ain't possible to play that stuff any better. It's just not. It's just not. And he'll never tell you that, which is even cooler.
No, he's a humble.
He is.
talent.
Yeah, he just does what he does.
Pillar, monster.
He does what
Drummer.
he does, and he's one of these guys. And if it's got a motor on it, he can probably build it. You know, it doesn't matter what it is.
Keep it in top condition.
Hell yeah. He's one of those guys, man.
Yep.
He's one of those
Takes
guys.
care of business.
Yeah, love that guy to death, man. And
Probably one of the most dependable humans you
Yes.
ever run
Yes,
across
he
in
is.
your life, too.
Yes, he is.
Just to get that sense from
oh yeah,
him.
and it's absolutely
And
true.
it's got to be on.
It's absolutely true. In fact, I'm really looking forward to a couple of weeks. On October 6th, he and I have. I'm mentioning. Did I mention Dr. Freedy on the mic? Guy Dave Freedy, Dr. Dave Freedy, who is a shredding guitar player, and is also
Columbus guy?
a Columbus guy, and also is has a his main gig is tuba in the Kentucky Symphony. He's got a doctorate in classical tuba. Isn't that nuts?
No, it's genius.
It is, and he is. He's a twisted genius, and he's a blast to record for. You know, because you never know what you're going to do.
So he calls people up and says, "Plan this time.
Yeah,
we're going to record."
Right. Well,
you just show up.
Well, he'll send some CDs and maybe some demos that he does with a click, but chances are it's not. At the end, it's not going to be what he sent completely. You know what I mean? And no clicks. It's just he wants lightning in a bottle, right? And just he's another one. I don't mean to tire on the phrase, but we'll not get another Dave Freedy. And so
Nice.
yeah, so what he wanted Keith and I to do. Quick background. He was doing this thing with me for a while, where for each CD coming up, he goes, "Okay, now for this one, I want Stuart Copeland." Right? So I'd bring up kind of a similar Police setup, tuned the same way, you know, playing similar parts, right? The next one, I want Kenny Aronoff. So, you know, or Alex Van Halen. So I'd bring up something similar, you know, and play that way, tune them that way, blah, 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 mic them up, you know. And then I want John Bonham. Well, I've got a 74 Ludwig Bonham kit
Nice.
with a big 26-inch bass drum. Yeah, it's a weapon. Love that kit. Oh yeah, exactly. You got to play that when you set them up too. It's
you.
like
Thanks for doing that.
You'll get a twitch if you don't. You know what I mean?
Thanks for doing that. Can you text me an hour before you do that again so I can come be a mouse in that room?
So, oh man, I've got pictures, and we were able to mic them the same way because they've got those $15,000 mics at music hall like Glenn Johns used to use. You know, so we were able to get pretty close to that sound. Well, on this upcoming one, Dave says, "I want you and Keith to play together, but here's what I want. There aren't going to be any other musicians on the session. It's just going to be me and him."
What does he perform?
Well,
Guitar.
What he wants Keith and I to do is he picked 4 different grooves. One is Manic Depression. Another is the 12/8 section of not Tom Sawyer, Free Will. Another was When the Levee Breaks, and then there's a third one that I can never remember. But he just wants Keith and I,
Inspired by those pieces.
yeah, he just wants both of us to like using those as motifs for, like, as he put it, 11 minutes, which I don't know if we got 11 minutes of vocabulary between the two of us for that, but and then he's just going to take whatever pieces that he wants and he's going to put everything else on them.
Damn.
And it'll be a blast.
Okay, are the products of this session going to be available for public consumption?
All of his stuff is on Bandcamp.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to link to this.
Okay,
please.
from album 1, see, I told you his bucket list is 50 CDs before he buys the farm, and we're at like 28 or 29 at this point.
Oh my gosh.
And I started
Is
playing,
it
I think, on
always
10.
you? Okay, you started playing 10. What about
10.
Keith though? Was Keith?
Keith, I'd never played with him before.
This is his first time.
It's his first time.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Keith and I have done some tag team things before, and it's just been a
Load of fun.
ridiculous ball of fun. My God, man,
You guys
because
deserve it, man.
oh man, it's
You
just
deserve all that you can do.
well, playing drums with him is like putting your hand in a glove. You know what I mean? You could just grab right on because he gets it. He gets it. You know, and I can't say enough about it, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Wow.
And so my sound for that will be, I wanted to go for some contrast. So he's going to be on my Bonham kit. I forgot to mention that, but he's going to be on the Bonham kit with all the big room mics, and I'm going to be goboed off And I thought I would go for the Hey 19 era Steely Dan drum sound, which is a real button down, vacuum packed. For contrast. Yeah, for contrast. Exactly. For contrast. Close mic'd, unlike, the Bonham thing. And I've got an old set of 80s Yamaha recording series like Murata and Gadd, and those guys played on that stuff.
Damn.
And honestly, it'll be a little bit of a challenge I don't know how close we'll get to those records sonically with that kid at Music Hall, but
that's your
we're
inspiration.
gonna get as close as we can. Yeah.
Damn.
But the big thing was having the contrast. So you've got for instance, the kick drum, which would be on my kit, would be that real pointed, basically a thump with a click at the beginning of it. Meanwhile, with that 26 from Keith, it's just somebody blowing up a Kia.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there'll be definition between the two players.
Oh, sure.
Oh
my gosh. I can't wait to hear that.
It'll be a lot of fun. I feel bad for the engineer because, good God.
Who is the engineer?
Engineer is their house guy, Bill.
Okay.
Real good guy.
Yep.
Real good guy. And
holy cow, dude.
But he's going to have his hands full. Fortunately for him, he won't have to deal with bass and guitars and stuff at the same time. But,
they'll come later.
Yeah, but 2 drum kits mic'd up at once would probably be a little bit of a character builder.
I'll say. Especially with you two cats.
I don't know about that, but I don't.
Man, what a great time.
Yeah, that would be. I
for
can't
you.
tell you, I'm looking forward to it.
Good for you.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Keith is a blast to play with.
Awesome. Love that.
As do I.
Oh my God, Sam, I feel like we just scratched the surface with the depth of your experience and your stories and your knowledge. Anything you want to leave us with, like a cup of, you do this as long as you want.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It feels weird. And then of course me, then there was I.
Somebody, you've been touring, you've been playing live your whole adult life,
Oh yeah.
And I know there's things you probably can't talk about or won't talk about.
Yeah, there's stuff that probably better not to.
And I don't want to press any of that, but any favorites that come to mind that you want to maybe leave us with?
Oh,
tease us with what it's like to be a rock and roll drummer.
Well,
that's for reals.
Well,
so to speak.
You get used to gas station chili dogs.
For 99 cents.
For 99 cents, you get used to the bus never really smelling the best for various reasons.
Yeah.
Basically the time that you're on stage is your reward for the rest of it. I don't drink, so I can't be oblivious to let the time pass. So I usually just read or sleep. But Europe, though, was different. Europe was. See, I've been a World War II nerd all my life, from almost when I was the same time I started playing drums. Because quickly, my dad was not my biological dad, but he's Indonesian, and he was into Indonesia when the Japanese invaded about a month after Pearl Harbor. Right. And anyway, he wound up, for whatever reason, with tons and tons and stacks of books. And I just kind of started picking one up, and I got really interested in it. And so when I went to Germany and stood in places where I'd only ever read about.
Wow.
For example. And so that was a blast. I mean, that was one of the pinnacles of my life, being able to go over to Germany, along with the insane realizations of, I just played a drum solo in Paris. I just played a drum solo in Berlin. I just played a drum solo in Birmingham. And so, but
that's a journey, man.
Yeah, I guess to suffice to say, I've done everything I want to do. I wanted endorsements, I got them. I wanted to have all these experiences playing different kinds of stuff just so I'd understand them. I got to do that. I always wanted to play at Cooper Stadium. Did it twice, right?
Did the commercial?
Did the commercial. Played on stage at the Ohio Center on Nico McBrain's Sumner.
Damn.
Through a cranked up PA.
Who gets to do that?
I know. I really feel lucky. I'm getting to write stuff that I used to complain about not hearing other people write, which is why I started writing to begin with. It's like, why don't I hear this? Why don't I hear that? Let's do it yourself. So that's a very enriching thing. you know, and I got my dogs, and I'm a happy guy.
That's awesome, man. Life is good.
Life is far from sucking.
And you got the Gypsy Kings
Got
right
the
now,
Gypsy
man.
Kings over here. Come on.
Go see the Gypsy Kings, man. Listen to that right foot.
Come out and see us hang out.
Blow your head off.
Quit it.
Great band. It really is.
Thank you. They're a lot of fun
It's
to
a
play
lot of
with.
fun, yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
You got a lot that comes into that. Mm-hmm. There's some great bands right now.
Yes, there are.
Gypsy Kings is one of them that have that pulled together historic attitude and experience.
Yeah.
That delivers a unique.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Presentation of the cover songs in that band, but at the same time, it's quality sonic,
Bless you.
dynamic performance because everybody's really working their craft, man. It's a great time.
It's big fun, and you know it's funny you mentioned that the bar for local bands is the highest that I have ever seen it. Right now, there are a lot of bands out there that are just stupid good.
Yeah, they're kicking it.
Stupid
hard.
good. Yep. Stupid good. Not for a long time. It seemed like they were just not cheese asses, but it was just kind of cruising along.
You know what? It's getting phoned in because, I mean, when you play to three people,
right? But Billy, I'll tell you what. I'm seeing videos on. This is the first time in since probably the '80s where I've actually wanted to go out and see other bands. You know,
good,
because I'd see these vids on YouTube of some of these bands local, and it's just like blowing me away. It's like, I can't. That sounds incredible, you know. And there's quite a few of them.
Yeah, there are.
So the bar is. I was talking about that with the Kings a couple days ago. The bar is really high. Columbus has always been, as you know, man. There's a lot of world class players in Columbus. They're fantastic musicians in Columbus. A lot of, and I'm not counting myself. I'm talking about this is amazing.
I don't know. I mean, I suppose, Nashville. Mm-hmm. I don't know about where would you know some of these mecca music cities?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was working in Nashville, there was a world class guitar player on every street corner.
Yeah.
You know, the guy that was dropping down the napkin in your glass of water to ask you what you wanted on your pancakes was probably a ridiculously talented musician. You know, they were everywhere. And it was all about
getting to next. Get to next.
I never would have gone down. I got called to come down there, or else I never would have gone. You know, I did sessions down there, and I just got lucky because there was somebody I'd worked with up here who was from down there. Somebody had hired him to come up here, produce a thing. He called me later, come down there. I want to use you on this, and then, the networking started that way. But there were a lot of guys. It's sad because there are a lot of guys there who should be making really comfortable livings playing their instrument, and they're just never going to, because of where they're at and how it's structured,
and not the structure that would get them to where they should be.
Right? Yeah, because number one, there's only so many gigs.
Yeah.
Number two, somebody who matters has to see you, or you have to play with somebody. Like the way I got a lot of other sessions once I stayed down there and was working was because of playing with the guys on the initial sessions. They'd tell somebody else, "I'll get this guy. Oh, I'll get this guy." And so I was really lucky doing that stuff. But like I said, I saw some people who were grateful for a $10 gig,
right?
Who were ridiculously good on pick an instrument.
Man,
yeah, everywhere. So,
aside from that,
but other than that, it's great.
I mean, there's a couple other cities. I don't know where they are. New York has a lot of musicians.
New York's got a lot of musicians.
Not necessarily like a scene like Columbus,
right? Like we mentioned, Danny Reeser, one of the best drummers ever come out of Columbus, by far. Like him and Chad Rager, a couple of, and Keith, and Columbus is drummer heaven. There's so many.
There are some great drummers,
and a lot of them. Yeah. Killer drummers. I mean, not just, it's not bad. No, I'm talking about, damn.
I know.
But Danny went to high school with him, and he, after high school, went to Eastman in New York and wound up playing on the first Norah Jones album that won all the Grammys.
So cool.
Yeah, and still doing lots of stuff. He's still doing lots of things.
That is a distinctive sound in that album.
Yeah.
That is one of the albums that and it's and you're like, it's the drummer.
Right.
I mean, she's got a beautiful voice, but it's and I felt the same way with Alaina Morissette's with the Foo Fighter drummer Taylor Hawkins.
Taylor Hawkins, yeah.
Like when you heard that album for the first time, her dynamics of her voice hit me hard. But I was like, it's the drummer. Like, what's with the like the recording of the drum? That drummer is just killer.
Yeah, and in fact, it's funny.
Just makes all the difference in the world.
Danny was telling me that he was playing at a bar while the Grammys were on that night, doing some bar gig, right? Just stirring soup, some piano trio thing, and people. The Grammys were on TV at the bar, and people would holler, "Hey, you just won another one." Oh, hey, just won another one. What an experience that must be.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's very cool.
Here's another one for you real quick. Okay. There's a drummer in town, wonderful, wonderful player named Troy Jones. Okay. There is a bass player named Foley, also from here. The three of us worked together at the Ohio Center. Troy Jones went on to play with After Seven on tour opening for Whitney Houston. Okay, he's on the Arsenio Hall show with them, right? Foley went on to play bass with Miles Davis, lead bass with Miles Davis. In fact, right now he's playing drums with Parliament Funkadelic. Foley it's disease. So there was the three of us, right? Okay,
Kevin Oliver on the guitar.
Kevin's ridiculous.
Kevin. I love Kevin.
So Troy and me and Foley worked together at the Ohio Center, right? Well, I was subbing in my cousin's band. My cousin is a world-class steel player named Skeeter Wolf, and his son Harley is a ridiculous guitar player. Subbing in his band because the drummer was a big alcoholic, and he put his fist through a mirror on the road, and they sent him back to North Carolina. Well, they were in Wyoming. So they flew me to Denver, picked me up, had to do a week in Cheyenne, a week in Casper, a week in like Joplin, Missouri. Anyway, so in Wyoming, I never saw the sun because we'd come home from the gig and sleep, and it was dark 3 or 4 in the afternoon, it seemed like. Anyway, like the third gig of the first week, TV was on, Grammys are on, right? I'm getting ready to go to, Bob's Inbred Country Bunker in the middle of Wyoming in January.
Right.
Where it's literally 50 below. And right as I'm walking out the door to get in the van to play all this hillbilly stuff, I'm seeing on the Grammys, there's like Chick Corea, I think Vinnie Colaiuta, and Foley. And I'm like, okay, and then here I am to play Blood on the Cider. It's like, man, that's depressing. And then here Troy was, out there with After Seven, on the Arsenio Hall show.
My
it's
God.
like, and then there's me that also ran,
Come on, man.
But I mean, what a cool thing to work with two
so
guys went
giant,
that far. They went that
giant.
far. Yeah.
You went far.
Well, in my own way, I guess. Maybe. I mean, like I said, I've done everything I want to do, so I got no complaints at all.
You're still going, man.
Yeah, still going, still digging it. It's fun again.
And you're creating.
Gypsy Kyngs.
Creating music.
Yeah.
Writing. Laying it down.
Yeah, a little bit of workout. God knows I need to burn the calories. I need as much work as I can get to get rid of my girlish doing a month figure. But
Doing a month.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah.
Love it. We scratched the surface with Sam Hooff, but it's been an enjoyable time, Sam.
I've had a blast, man. I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
Not at all. No. This was a fabulous time, and really appreciate you sharing so much. And I think it's an inspirational story, because you found early that this is what you're going to do.
I guess
It's in you, and you related it to it on a deep level. Carried it on, and you're still doing it.
too stupid to quit.
Gratefully. And we'll keep our ears open too for this Bandcamp release, right? Is it going to be a Bandcamp release, or is it going to be something more?
It's on the site.
We can follow it there, right?
He's got all his stuff, and I believe it's Dr. Dave Freedy, like Bandcamp / Dr. Dave Freedy or something like that. All his stuff is on that page.
Where do we find your stuff, Sam?
My stuff, my basement. I haven't released anything or anything like that.
Do you have any desire to share it with someone?
Well, I've wondered about that, but there's always fear of failure. For one thing, Chaz Meckenbauer said, "I'm the modern Burt Bacharach." I wind up writing The stuff that seems to come out for the most part, I guess, would probably be called modern yacht rock, which not exactly a burgeoning market for such a thing. You know what I mean?
I do.
So, you know.
But yacht rock is cool,
Yeah,
dude.
but that's not why I do it though. I mean, to get it out and to just self-satisfy. I guess it's quite masturbatory.
I get that.
So-
I did that in 2007.
Yeah,
And I have 3 of them out there floating around.
beautiful.
You know, and it's there. I mean, I'm going to say, hey, what's good, your music? I have a place to point them if they want to listen. But it's, you know, I'm inspired to do more. I just, you know, haven't made it a priority.
I get you. Yeah. It is a focused experience, so you need to be able
It
to.
is, yeah, it is. Once I get into that creative mode, I don't sleep for a week.
I totally get
I'm
it.
up at 5 in the morning
Yeah.
from 8 o'clock the previous night, like
Don't-
laying tracks.
Oh yeah. You look at the clock; it says 1. Look at it again; it says 11 the next morning. Totally get it.
Time
Yeah.
is gone.
It's gone. Yep.
But you know, I mean, you're a creative guy, dude. It'd be nice to get a glimpse of what you're creating.
Well,
because you're a force.
I'll send you some stuff if you think you can stand it.
I know that I could. I'd love to listen to it. But I think other people would too. But I would respect your privacy, right? Like I'm not gonna like blast some stuff out there.
I know.
on you
I'd
like
be
that,
cool about it.
right?
Yeah, just because it could be crap. You know what I'm saying?
It's not.
Nobody.
I know that it's not.
Well-
right? But yeah, I think you will inspire me to do something. I think
I appreciate
it'd be
that.
nice, and I would appreciate your
Sure.
sharing that. It'd be
be blessed.
awesome, even if it's private. You know,
Very cool.
very cool.
Very cool indeed.
Sam Hooff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Len. This has been wonderful. I hope everybody out there's perspective world is beautiful.
Absolutely. We thank you for your sharing of your contributions to things that you do, Sam. I mean, it's just great feeling. Man.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you. And we thank you for listening. Have a great night. Bye-bye.